In today's video, I will be taking a look at 5 surprisingly competitive races in polling this election cycle. Now, I'm gonna say I have saved the best for last, so do not skip any part of this video. But regardless, let's get right into today's prediction video, starting with the 5th state, the state of Pennsylvania. Now, for the state of Pennsylvania, Fetterman was leading by up to 12 points in polling about 2 months ago, or maybe 3 months ago. But now the state is right now in a dead heat, with Fetterman up by just 0.4%, while he has previously been up by up to 12 points again. Now, he has never reached that far above 50%. He was at 51.2% in polls for a small amount of time, for I think just a day, but then he started to drop, and now it's in a dead heat. So Pennsylvania, it wasn't really that surprising. We knew that undecided voters were really going to break for amendment odds close to the election cycle, but it's surprising how the polls changed by so much in a short period amount of time. Again, I'm not surprised that Fetterman will lose to Dr. Oz. I've consistently said that throughout the past few months, but in the end, though, I do think that Oz will win against John Fetterman, but Fetterman losing in the polls are quite surprising. So for the 4th state is the state of Oregon. So for the state of Oregon here, it really is the third-party candidate. But why is it still surprising then? Well, for Oregon, when the third-party candidate was actually doing well, when Johnson was taking a substantial amount of votes away from the Democratic Party, Kotek had a lead of about 6%. And it was actually a three-way race. We're talking about the independent getting roughly the same amount of votes as the Republican candidate. But as the third-party candidate started to drop, Kotek was expected to really rise. But she didn't rise. In fact, she dropped. And now this race is super competitive. It's within 2 percentage points. And it was really about when we thought was that because Johnson's votes were going to drop, Democratic support will rise. That's why Democrats were not doing that well in the first place. However, it seems like Johnson also took a decent chunk of votes from the Republican Party, at least initially. But now, closer to the election cycle, many Republicans are definitely backing their own candidate. Thus, this is why probably that Kotek is really not doing that well. Regardless, it does seem like that this is a surprising race because we didn't really, at the start of this election cycle, think that the state of Oregon was going to be that close. But now it's really hair-raisingly close. My last governor's prediction had this race as a total Republican. We'll have to see how this race plays out on election day. Now, the 3rd state is the state of Washington. In the Senate level. Now, for the state of Washington, it was never going to be that large of a margin. It was never going to be like a 20% margin, but at one point it was still around a 15-point margin. But this race narrowly but surely started to become closer. And now the incumbent Democrat has dropped under 50% in the polling, which is again not a good sign for her. And Tiffany Smiley is now at 44%. This race is actually expected to be more competitive than we thought. Obviously, we never thought that this race was going to be a 20-point margin, and we still don't think that really the Republicans have much of a chance in Washington. But it's really interesting how close this race has gotten over the past elections, because now remember, Democrats in the state of Pennsylvania in the governor's level, Democrats are leading by 11% in the polls. Yet in the Washington Senate level, Democrats are only leading by 6. That really tells you that this race is actually quite competitive. Now going to this, not necessarily competitive, but closer in the margin. Now the 2nd state, the state of New York, where things really get interesting. In the New York governor's level here, Kathy Hochul only leads by 7 points, which was not expected. She was leading by upwards of close to 20 points about 4 months ago, but now her lead is just 6.6 points. Again, this race, there was no substantial dips for the Democratic Party or substantial jumps for the Republicans. We did see a little bit of jumps of about 2 or 3%, maybe 2 or 3 times, but it wasn't necessarily a overnight thing. However, this race was consistently getting closer. Looking at July 26th, this was the margin. There was a slight jump for the Republicans here. There's another slight jump for the Republicans here and then here. And now Republicans are jumping to a point in which they are getting 43.6% in the polls, while Kathy Hochul is barely over 50%. Now, will this race be actually that close? Will Republicans have a chance of flipping this race? Will Lee Zeldin possibly win? I don't think so. I don't think Republicans really have a chance in this race. But why talk about it? It's still interesting. New York was never expected to be at all close, but now you're seeing that margins really shrink. We're talking about Pennsylvania having a larger margin of victory, according to the polls, than the state of New York, which is actually incredible in my opinion. Now for the final state, the state of, I don't think you can guess it, but of Oklahoma. Now, this race will not be close. This is actually kind of like a joke. It's not actually going to be within 3.2 points. Democrats are not going to win Oklahoma. However, Hofmeister was a former elected official in the state of Oklahoma as a Republican, and now she switched to the Democratic Party. She actually is making this race far closer than expected. Now, polling's not the best source. We don't have that many polls. We only have a total of about 12 polls, making this not really that accurate. However, it's interesting. It's interesting that this race is even mildly competitive, because I still don't think it's competitive or even mildly competitive, but the polls do certainly suggest that. Democrats were only at 30% to start off with, but as the time went on, Democrats started to improve in this race. Why did Democrats improve? I don't really know, but they just seem to have. And this race, neither candidate is over 50%. Again, I'm going to repeat myself here. Democrats are not going to win Oklahoma. They're not going to make it within 3%. But this race is still interesting. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.